What up, Keyforge? Welcome to the KAGI 9.0 finale with quickdraw3457 versus Anchi. It's going to be super exciting. Adaptive best of three. I am Zoc, and I am excited. This is going to be super cool. What's up, Murph? How you doing? AKA Fudginator. We should hopefully get started here in just a moment. I think we are just waiting to see if everybody is ready to rumble. But while we're waiting, let's talk a little bit about KAGI and the history. Hey, what's up, Ember Meaties? Nice to see you. What is KAGI? KAGI is Keyforge as Garfield intended. Why is it named that? Does it really mean that? No. But it makes for a nice acronym. Garfield was quoted as saying, "I often like picking a deck and trying to win with it, rather than picking a deck with the best chance of winning," which is what adaptive is all about. And we'll get to see that tonight with two great competitors. Let's start talking about Quick Draw. Now, this is pretty amazing. Quick Draw 3457 has made 8 out of the 9 top cuts in all of KAGI. Yes, he has made more top cuts than anyone by far. And this is his third final, tying Ashitaka. And he did win back in KAGI 3.0, so he has a chance to pick up his second title, which would tie him with the amazing Not Tonight. Yeah, so lots on the stake here. Now, on the flip side, what's really cool. Yes, Quick Draw is the KAGI GOAT for sure. You've got the drip on point. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, appreciate it. Let me check. Still waiting. Still waiting for make sure our participants are ready. But so we talked about Quick Draw. Now Quick Draw, he's actually from Pittsburgh. And how did he get into Keyforge? Well, he was a long time card game player. But what's pretty funny is he saw one of the articles about the banned Keyforge deck names. They had a bunch of the band names that were like, they're either racist or really inappropriate in some way. And so he's like, "Oh, I want to try to get one of those. That sounds interesting." So he got his first deck, and his first deck that he ever opened was named the complete opposite of anything offensive. It was the Acceptable Smith. And, since he had bought the deck, he started playing with it, and it turns out Keyforge is a pretty awesome game. So he had an awesome combo with double inspiration and Witch of the Eye, so he fell in love with it right away and has been playing it ever since, especially on adaptive. And you can actually see QuickDraw3457 every week at twitch.tv/sloppylabwork, where he is a co-host with JT Russell of Bottom of the Beaker, with some of the most interesting content every week. So check it out. Now, what about Anchi? So QuickDraw's made 8 out of 9 top cuts in KAGI. Anchi, this is Anchi's first season. Amazing. And if I recall right, yes, they went undefeated in their pod and have gone all the way to the final in their first season. That is amazing. So, now I have a little bit more information here. Just checking one thing. Yes. Okay. Still waiting on our participants. I will ping them. But getting back to Anchi, sorry. Anchi is from Vietnam. They're actually a student in university. And they first started playing Keyforge in November 2022. And they first found this league last summer. Now, they wanted to play in KAGI 9 just to learn and improve, but they just kept winning and winning. On the way, they faced many well-known players, including his favorite streamer, Linusu, which was exciting. And Pinkest was actually the one who inspired him to play Keyforge because he had watched him compete in the Vietnam National Adaptive Tournament in 2022, which he won, which made André curious about Keyforge. So he decided to drop Magic the Gathering and start playing Keyforge. So super awesome. Hey, what's up, Odd Monster? Nice to see you. Okay. So, while we are waiting for the players, one thing that is really interesting is what decks are they going to bring? Because they can actually bring any deck that they want. It can be a bad deck, it can be a good deck, it can be a middling deck, it can be an interesting deck that's hard to play, which is often what people like to bring for adaptive. And of course, Quickdraw is known for bringing some really tricky decks, especially decks from Dark Tidings. So while we're waiting, we can actually take a look at some of the decks that Quickdraw has brought in the history. So let me pull up decks of Keyforge. Now there's of course Spiky Guadalupe. I should have actually had these up beforehand, which I didn't. Guadalupe the periodically spiky. Yeah. And there's the Evil Twin, which is actually a it's a French deck. Let's see. Do I have that deck ready in a link? Oh, I can find it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let me do this real quick. And then I'll swap over so that we can take a look together. Yeah, Le Double Maléfique de Esflora le Impenetrable. Okay, so let's pull these up. Okay, so in KAGI 3.0, Quickdraw played Guadalupe the periodically spiky. Is that right? Or am I getting it mixed up? Did he play it in the other one? I forget. I'm pretty sure he played this one in 3.0 and the other one in 7.0. So Guadalupe the periodically spiky has a lot of cool DT stuff. Double Deepwater Gruin, Chelonia, Thin the Herd to bring to potentially play stuff again. Witch of the Dawn to bring stuff back. All tied up. It's got some of the tricky stuff here is Mecha Boy, Tide Warp, and Static Collection Array. So Static Collection Array reads your keys cost -1 ember while the tide is high, and +1 ember while the tide is low. And Tide Warp says at the start of your turn, if the tide is high, your opponent raises a tide. Otherwise, you raise a tide. And finally, Mecha Boy says at the start of each player's turn, if the tide is high for that player, they gain 1 ember. So each of these interacts, and it can be pretty tricky to play yourself to even if you play these or not, depending on what's going on, if you're ahead, if you're behind. And sometimes you could be paying 5 for a key, sometimes you could be paying 7 for a key. So you got to really know kind of how to play these just right. And there's a lot of other interesting interactions with the tide, Lots of cool stuff. Hello, hello, Vietnam. Kukalantan, nice to see you. We are just waiting here for our players to be ready. And so we're going through some decks that have been used in the past. DT seems like a pretty perfect set for adaptive. It totally is. I don't know DT at all. Yeah, a lot of people don't know it that well, actually. So another reason that it's really good for adaptive. Especially, it's got a lot of tricky cards, a lot of weird interactions with the tide. Also, it's got the whole interaction of, do I raise the tide or not if I need it for some of my effects? And when you're playing against it, do I raise the tide? And in adaptive, in the third game, you're bidding chains for the deck. Well, now it gets even more interesting because you not only have the chains that you bid for the deck, but then you might need to add chains for raising the tide on top of that. So there's a lot of complexity involved, which makes DT actually really good for adaptive. Okay, now let's get to the other deck that Quickdraw has brought before. I believe this was at KAGI 7.0 that he played this. It's yes. He played this one in 7.0 versus Ashitaka. Another really interesting DT, and what's cool about this one is it's an evil twin. So now there's cards that are even less common, more rare, that you might never ever played with before. For example, the evil twin of Lapisaurus. It's got skirmish and it says fight, exalt the creature Lapisaurus fights. Or the evil twin of Magistra Vita, which says play fight, you may exalt a friendly non-saurian creature. If you do, fight with it. But this one also has a lot of really interesting decisions. With the double evil twin Witch of the Dawn, it allows you to destroy one of your friendly creatures, and if you do, bring back a different creature from the discard pile and ready and use it, which is super powerful. It has double Deepwater Gruin, so you can make a lot of Ember that way. It's got an evil twin Chelonia, which says after you play another creature, if the tide is high, your opponent loses 1 Ember. So you can make your opponent lose a whole bunch of Ember that way. It's got Beach Day, so you can return the Witch of the Dawn Evil Twin to your hand and do it again. It's got a Key Frog, which you can destroy for a key. And then off house, because it lets you to ready and use it, you can actually get Calm Officer Hings and Gross off in Untamed. And Hings, of course, says after fight, after reap, draw 1 card for each creature between Calm Officer Hings and Calm Officer Gross. So you can have a huge turn in Untamed using Star Alliance cards to draw a whole bunch of cards. So there's a lot of kind of complexity and interesting plays that you can do here. Evil Witch of the Dawn, weakest Grim Reminder card. Yeah, it is. It's all washed up. We're still waiting for our players. Now, one thing that, of course, is always interesting is playing on multiple sides of the world, which does make scheduling a little more difficult. Hopefully, though, we are okay. I think we have something here. Can Witch of the Dawn bring back Gross and Gross bring Hings back? Well, it can, but unfortunately, when Gross brings Hings back, what they say is put it into your hand. So if it's in your hand, you can't really use it. So unfortunately, if they're both in your discard, you can't get that off in Untamed. One of them has to be on the board, and then one of them has to be in your discard. Or both of them can be on your board, and you can destroy one. And then if you have 2 Witch of the Dawn, I guess, destroy one with 1 Witch of the Dawn, and then play it with the other one. But yeah, if they're both in your discard pile, it would bring back the other one, but it just brings it back to your hand, so you wouldn't be able to play it and use it. Yeah, good question though. Okay, we're just about getting ready to go. Let us load in to the Crucible on TCO, the Crucible Online. If you haven't already, support them. They're awesome. They kept the game alive during the pandemic. They have a Patreon. It's like hidden to get there. I think it's in Help About. Let's see. It's here somewhere. How to play? Where is it? I don't even see a link to it. I know if you go to Patreon and search for the Crucible Online, it is there. So, but anyway, let's get in. All right, we have players. We do not know what deck we're seeing actually, because I was just looking through decks that they've played in the past. Before we start, I need to spam this link out. So, give me just a moment here. Spamming initiated. Yeah, so I was just looking at some of the decks that we have seen Quickdraw play in KAGI finals in the past, since he's been in here so many times. But we have no idea what he's going to play. It could be a Grim Reminders deck. It could be DT. It could be Coda? No, it's not going to be Coda. Yes, good luck to both players. We hope for an exciting match. The commissioner is watching with great interest. Odds of a whirlpool. I think odds of a whirlpool. I would say about 50%. What does everybody else say? Not on Winds of Exchange. Yeah, I could see that not happening. But you never know. There are interesting and complex decks in every set. So, every set could be good for adaptive. You just got to find the right deck. Okay. So, now, unfortunately, I have not seen any of Anchi's matches before today. So I'm also quite excited to see what they bring. I'm not sure what they've been bringing so far. If they've been bringing one deck for everything in the pods and the playoffs, or if they've mixed it up. So that's also interesting. Okay, they're back in. Ooh, that would be the biggest curveball of all, but not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Ah, thank you for the follow, Quackon. Why did my alert box not pop up? And why is my chat box hidden? We need to, let's go here. Where's this supposed to be? There. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. Here we go. We're in, so good luck to both players. Here we go. We do have Guadalupe the periodically spiky from Quick Draw, and we have Arabelle Blood Oath Plutopoly from Anchi. So let's take a quick look at the decks. Of course, we just looked through Guadalupe the periodically spiky. It is the DT deck with double Deepwater Gruin, Chelonia, Witch of the Dawn, the very interesting Tide interactions with Tide Warp, Mecha Buoy, Static Collection Array. It does have Ulfbert device. You have to know, do I play that? Is it better for me or worse for me to play that? It's got Hydro Cataloger, lots of interesting interaction there. And then we have Blood Oath, an 83 SAS AOA deck. A really smoking Logos lineup here with triple ZYX researcher, double Titan Librarian. It's got the whole ZYX suite with Project and Director, Jargoggle, Professor Sutterkin, Remote Access, Lab Work, Poke. We only have 4.4 creature control, 11 Amber control. Let me check on them really quick. Onchi says this is their first Keyforge deck and the one they love the most. So that is so awesome. And I could see how you could fall in love with Keyforge if you have this logo suite, some really good Ember Control and Shadows, double Miasma, Too Much to Protect, Ronnie, Nerve Blast, Swindle, and in Untamed, look at this, double Mimicry, Punctuated Equilibrium, Flaxia Glimmer to get some of that back, and Grasping Vines, which is actually both remote access is not as probably pertinent, but Grasping Vines is pertinent to throw all those artifacts back in the owner's hand. Okay, so there's some interesting interactions here already. And of course, I think we talked about all the interesting artifacts there. Hydro Cataloger, Mecha Boy, Tide Warp, Static Collection Array, and the Ulfbert device. All right, we are getting started. Very cool AOA deck, for sure. Fun fact, he got that deck from a Sealed Alliance event, and he kept that deck as a whole and won the event. Oh, that's really cool, and nice to see you, IT Ding Kong. Okay, so we have, who was the first player here? Quickdraw is the first player. And it looks like Quickdraw mulliganed, and Onchi also mulliganed. Quickdraw starts with Untamed and with a Flumph and passes. Onchi starts with a Poke and double Titan Librarian, but no creature to make them not on the flank, so they don't start archiving any cards yet. But if they can get those going, that could be really good. So let's take a quick look at Onchi's deck again. With all the speed and logos, they can set up some pretty devastating Shadows plays. And the Untamed has a lot of utility with the double Mimicries. Now, the big thing is they did only have the 4.4C. So that will be something that will be interesting to see how both of these players navigate, is such a low C. Now, one of the C was Save the Pack, which could be pretty important. We see Quickdraw come back in Star Alliance, plays down Static Collection Array, Technobabble to stun the Titan Librarians, and Dr. Driscoll. Onchi gets some Flaxia value, gaining Chew Ember because they have more creatures. Save the Pack already to take out the Flumph, Mimicry on the Technobabble to stun Dr. Driscoll, and Grasping Vines to return Static Collection Array to their hand. They are up to 5 Ember. And they now get to get some value out of that Titan Librarian because one of them is not on the flank and starts archiving. Quick Draw goes quickly back into Star Alliance, exhausts the Dr. Driscoll to remove its stun, plays back the Static Collection Array, Biome Discovery raises a tide, and Stunner comes down on Dr. Driscoll. And because the tide is high and they have Static Collection Array out, they're actually at check at 5 Ember because Static Collection Array reduces the key cost while the tide is high and raises it while the tide is low. So that will be interesting to see how they manage that as well. There's going to be a lot going on in this game, so it's super exciting. I'm totally going to miss some, so call me out. I'm cool with that. They go back into Logos. Director of ZYX comes down. They got all the archiving. Jar Goggle. Project ZYX. And they exhaust the Titan Librarians. And they take the tides. So the chains have started. They take the tides so that Quick Draw does not get a cheap key. Now, we haven't seen on Chico shadows at all, and they have a lot of good Ember control in shadows, so this is also going to be something that they have to both navigate, is how do they not get really screwed by that too much to protect. Quick Draw comes back with Build Jordan to raise a tide, a Tide Warp, and a Mecha Boy. Here comes the artifact. So what's interesting here is Tide Warp and Mecha Boy, they happen at the start of the turn. So because the tide is high right now, if On-Chi leaves the tide high, it'll come back and the key cost will go up to 7. Because the Mecha Boy will change the tide. Now they can get value out, or sorry, Tide Warp will change the tide, but they will get value out of the Mecha Boy because they can make that happen first. Playing around the infighting. Oh, I see. Yes, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5. Yes, some of the few creature control in Quick Draw's deck is the infighting. Thin the Herd, double Technobabble, and on the other side we have a Life for Life, Save the Pack, Persistence Hunting, Special Delivery. So not a lot of creature control on both sides. On-Chi goes right back into Logos. They have a whole bunch of creatures on the board. ZYX Researcher archives their Grasping Vines. So they're looking forward to pushing all those artifacts back. And then they reap out. And with the Project ZYX, they use the Grasping Vines to throw them all back. They're going to make them pay 6 for this key and not get that extra Ember. But they are now up to check at 11 after reaping out. Tide Warp Mecha Boy can be quite the brainbuster sometimes, haha. Now, what I really like about this play is this also really clogs up Quick Draw's hand. With 2 artifacts in Logos, 1 artifact in Star Alliance, Saver just going Star Alliance and Logos. So it really clogs up their hand. They do go into Star Alliance and they get some value themselves. Static Collection Array comes back down. Lieutenant Volmart comes down to increase the key cost up to 9. And then Xeno Training captures a couple Ember. And Dr. Driscoll fights off a ZYX Researcher and stuns Project ZYX. So On-Chi gets their first key for 9 Ember. Logos doing Logos things. So, since On-Chi didn't stop Quickdraw's key before, can make some assumptions that maybe they didn't have kind of some answers in hand from Shadows. Although, going Logos and reaping like 5 times is always good, right? So, and getting back the Grasping Vines and playing that, so maybe he thought that was just too much value, even more value than keeping him from a key. The other thing is they're getting so much archiving out of their Titan librarians and their director. They could probably archive their whole Shadows house here. They're already up to 7 in the archives. So they could potentially pretty much stop Quickdraw from any amount of Ember here. They do go back into Logos. They unstun the Project ZYX. They will be trying to decide what do we want to do with the rest of creatures here. Remote access just for the Ember. A lab work to archive even more. After this turn, there'll be up to 10 in the archives after the Titan librarians go off. Director of ZYX fights at Dr. Driscoll, and then Jargoggle finishes off. So we get to see what's under Jargoggle, and it's a life for life, which destroys the Flaxia and takes out the Lieutenant Volmarts. So On-Chi doing a little bit of board control here. And reaping out with the other 2 Logos to get to check at 6. So getting both of those Titan Librarians first turn has been huge for On-Chi. They have been on the board the entire game, up to 10 in their archives. This almost feels like an unassailable position here. Quickdraw does have a lot of burst with Chelonias and Double Deepwater Gruins still there and the Witch of the Dawn, but they don't have a key cheat, so all of that could potentially be stolen when they gain it. But they are really close here to their second key. Let's see what happens here. So they reap with the Bilge Warden to raise the tide for On-Chi. They play Theory of Conjecture to archive 2 cards. A Time Warp and Mecha Boy come down. So now they have to decide what do they want to do here. Not if, but when it goes back to Quickdraw, he'll get an Ember from Mecha Boy, and then the Tide Warp will raise the tide, and then they'll get a key for 5 Ember. On-Chi says bait and switch. I think they're trying to think about what all they want to do here. They do have miasmas, and I'm sure they have at least 1 miasma in their archive. Double miasma, too much to protect. They have a lot of options here. They're now up to 11 in archives. They go Logos. Now they can play stuff with their Project ZYX in their archives, which is so good. They fight off the Bill Jordan with the ZYX, and they play the Miasma with that. They reap out. They put out Professor Sudekin for even more pressure. And it goes back to quick draw at 7 Ember now, but with the miasma does not forge. And with 4 cards in hand and 4 in the draw and 12 in the archives, we know Anchi must have almost assuredly the other miasma or the too much to protect. Plus they have a swindle and Ronnie wrist clock, so they have a lot of stuff they can do. We also haven't seen a lot of their untamed tricks, a double mimicry and the punctuated equilibrium. And they do get up to check at 6 as well. So quick draw here has to stop them and then try and figure out how they can't just have a whole bunch of embers stolen, which might just not be possible. Now, one thing that's interesting here that may play into later games is the Ulfbert device. The Ulfbert device would have prevented Anchi from playing Logos every turn. So we'll have to see if that comes into play in later games. But Quick Draw goes into Untamed. They come out with a Mookling to take Anchi off a check. The Milobi comes out, the Deepwater Gruin comes out, the Fittest comes out to give each of them a +1 power, and they discard All Tied Up probably because they don't want to go all the way to give them even more Ember if they have that too much to protect, is what I'm guessing, but not positive there. Okay, they go back in the Logos. First they reap with the Sutterkin. Okay, so now they have access to all their cards, so 9 of them are in their hand. They have nothing in the discard, 9 in their hand, 9 in the draw, 13, 14 now in the archives because ZYX Researcher comes out. They have, we haven't seen Shadows all game except played by the Project ZYX. This ZYX suite has been doing stuff this game. They also reap with the Director. Titan Librarian takes out the Mookling. They reap with the other Titan Librarian. And then Project ZYX also reaps and plays their second miasma. And they pass it back. Oh, and there's a lab work. Got to get back up to 14 archives. And it'll be 15, 16 after this with both the Titan Librarians. Okay, there's the archives from the Titan Librarian. So up to 16 cards in archive, almost their whole deck, or almost half their deck. Anchi's at check with 12 Ember. It goes back to quick draw. They gain an Ember. They use a Tide Warp to raise the tide, and they concede. So Anchi has won game number 1. And now they swap decks and we do it all again. Okay, so that was really interesting. One thing that we didn't see, very spicy. One thing that we didn't see from Quick Draw, from Guadalupe the Periodically Spiky, was much of the creature control at all. We didn't see the infighting, we didn't see the Thin the Herd, we did see one of the Technobabbles, and we did see the Stunner and Milobi. We didn't see the final analysis either. Some of that C would have really helped. Having that Logos board go off was pretty debilitating. So, now we are on to match 2. Quickdraw has decided to go first. And it looks like they mulliganed. Because they're down to 6 cards in hand. And on she keeps. So Quickdraw starts with Director of ZYX, which is a great card to start with. They'll be archiving at the start of their turn. They will archive the top card of their deck. Ooh, now that's really interesting. On Chi starts with a Ulfbert device, so we're not going to see logos every turn. They also play Technobabble, the Stun Director of ZYX, a Shield You Later, and a Xeno Training coming out. So a pretty nice 4-card Starline turn. Quickdraw quickly goes into Untamed. They discard Save the Pack. Mimicry on the Technobabble to stun Shield You Later. They regrowth for the Ember, and then they punctuated Equilibrium. They discard Ronnie Riskcox and Jargoggle from their hand, while On Chi discards Deer Conjecture, Final Analysis, Chelonia, Eddie, Static Collection Array, and Novu Archaeologist. They hit a lot of good cards there. They get a Persistence Hunting to stun or to exhaust the Shield You Later. And then they finally get some Flaxia value to round it all out. A pretty good punctuated Equilibrium for Quickdraw there. On Chi goes back into Logos, plays the Tide Warp. Oh, thank you. Thank you. What's up, Dinobot? Updating the score. On Chi is up 1-0 on the game chew. Ooh, Mecha Boy also comes down. We have the good old fun Mecha Boy Tide Warp action. Oh, the punctuated Equilibrium is super spicy. Ooh, Eddie also comes down and archives a card. Both players are at 5 Ember, but On Chi is that sneaky check here with the Tide Warp and Mecha Boy action. Quickdraw having a little bit of a think. They did discard a Ronnie and a Durgoggle. They've already gone through 5 of their Untamed, 6 of their Untamed with the Flaxia, and 2 of their Logos and 1 of their Shadows. I'm sure they would definitely love to get some more of that Logos efficiency going if they have the chance, but they are getting director value. They're also, of course, playing around their infighting. Oh, I missed it. Quickdraw came and played Swindle, steals 3, gets the check, passes it back to On Chi. So they're at check at 8 Ember. Key cost will be 7 Ember because of the Eddy. And On Chi raises a tide and gains the Ember with the Mecha Boy. One thing I forgot to mention earlier when talking about KAGI is, if you don't know, KAGI 10.0 signups are open. So go to the Sanctimonious Discord, channel KAGI, get a link to the signups. I will put one when I post this on YouTube as well, the link to the signups. But signups are open. Fudginator's done a great job running KAGI since KAGI 6 or KAGI 5 or 6. So it's your chance to get in the next season. Okay. Anchi goes into Untamed. They play Witch of the Dawn to bring back Chelonia, and they're getting some good value here. Deepwater Gruin with 2 Ember, plus another Ember for Chelonia, and Youngest Bear to get another Ember from Chelonia. They get up to check at 7, and it goes over to Quick Draw. Still getting some value out of that Director, but now having to worry about a pretty big board here. Now, as we saw last game, Anchi's deck doesn't have a lot of creature control. Blood Oath. The Save the Pack is already discarded. The Persistence Hunting has already been used. So there's a Nerve Blast, a Life for Life. There's not much that they're going to be able to get out of actions. They do play a couple Logos creatures, Titan Librarian, Project ZYX. Elaborate comes down, so they are going to give them the first key here. And they ready up. So Anchi gets their first key, and they still have a pretty big Untamed board here. So pretty good position for Anchi. Let me get you all here. Here is the KAGI 10.0 sign up form if you're interested. All right, Anchi goes into Star Alliance. They can be gaining a lot of Ember still with Chelonia, although they'll have to raise the tide or have some way to raise the tide if they have creatures. They exhaust to shield you later. Not knowing what Anchi has in their hand, I would have been tempted to go Untamed. They would have been able to reap for 4 times, also unstun the shield you later with Youngest Bear. But if they didn't have anything in their hand, and if they didn't have any kind of control that they might need for later, maybe they didn't want it. Now, they probably also want to have some way to take care of the Titan Librarian and Project ZYX, because that could get out of hand. Well, let's see what they do here. They play the Dr. Driscoll, a Teresa onto Youngest Bear, a Stunner on the Deepwater Gruin, so with the Teresa they can use Youngest Bear, because Teresa allows it to be used as if it belongs to their neighbors, which is Star Alliance. So they get some extra value there, and they pass turn. Ah, yes. Mecha Buoy is, of course, double-sided. So Quick Draw actually got to gain an Ember there because the tide was high for them. Ah, yes. Thank you. He couldn't go back into Untamed, of course, because of the Ulfbert device. Thank you very much. Okay, Quick Draw goes into Shadows. Skeleton Key comes down, Nerve Blast comes down, takes out the Chelonia. Selwyn the Fence comes down. And Life for the Life, which takes out the Selwyn the Fence and the Deepwater Gruin that had the Stunner on it. That was also the biggest risk for getting rid of the Project ZYX, so with direct fighting, they can't get rid of it at least. Although, let's see. They still have the possibility of getting infighting, which could help. This is a pretty good back and forth battle here. Yes, already the Ulfbert is causing some different and interesting kind of turns to happen, different from the first game. So that's cool. We do see that final analysis is in the discard. As one of the other key creature control cards. They go back into Untamed. Mookling comes out, along with Milobi, all tied up to get some extra Ember with the Tide Rays up to check at 6 already. Youngest Bear reaps, and Shield You Later reaps, and using the Youngest Bear ability, and then Wish It a Dawn also reaps, so they're up to check at 9. Now we have no idea what Quick Draw has here in either Archive or Hand. They have definitely the potential to play either a Miasma or Too Much to Protect with a Project, ZYX. So that could be a possibility here. They can't go back in the Shadows because of the Ulfbert device. So we'll have to see what goes on here. Let's see, we haven't seen much Untamed for quite a while also. We did see the big play on Churn Chu with a punctuated equilibrium. But since then, I don't think we've seen any Untamed. And they go back into Logos. ZYX Researcher comes down. They archive their deck. They did have a chance to archive Life for Life, so that's also interesting. They want maybe more options for the ZYX. Remote access comes down, which doesn't do anything. Except gain Ember, of course. Titan Librarian takes out the Eddy. Project ZYX takes out the Mookling. They play the Miasma off the Project ZYX. That can allow them to set up for a huge too much to protect play. They poke the Dr. Driscoll. And Director of ZYX also reaps, and then they get to archive another with Titan Librarian. And they are up to check at 9. So because they went Untamed last turn, Anqi needs to go either Star Alliance or Logos. We haven't seen him go Logos for a few turns here. But they do have 2 Star Alliance creatures on the board. Well, let's see. Is Quickdraw still thinking about what card to archive here with the Titan Librarian? Yep, there it goes. All right. Okay. Anqi goes into Star Alliance. Up to 10 Ember themselves. Quickdraw at check with 9 Ember. We've already seen the Mookling. We've already seen both Eddies. In Star Alliance, we could potentially see the Lieutenant Volmart. Shield You later removes a Titan Librarian. And Dr. Driscoll heals it to gain 2 Ember. And Youngest Bear reaps. They are now up to 13 Ember. They use Biome Discovery to raise the tide, so that's allows us so Quickdraw doesn't gain more Ember off the Mecha Buoy. Lieutenant Volmar does come down, so they do increase the key cost by 3. And Technobabble stuns the Project ZYX, which is huge. And they go up all the way to 15 Ember. Quickdraw does have to pay 9 Ember for their key here. Hoping we get a game 3. I am as well. The game is still in balance. Does Quickdraw? He should have access now to the Too Much to Protect. He's got... It is not in the discard, and he's got all the rest of his deck either in his archive or hands. 10 cards in the archive, 5 in his hand. He did go Logos last turn, so he can go into Shadows. And so that's what I'm expecting for a really big play here. Alright, Quickdraw does go in the Shadows. Takes their whole archive, 15 cards in their hand. There goes the Too Much to Protect. They already go up to 11 Ember. They steal 9 Ember. Miasma also comes down. Special Delivery, Red Lock. They are just bursting up way beyond where On-Chi can stop them. Lemindra comes down, and for good measure, capture one with Skeleton Key on the Project ZYX. Up to check at 12. Pass it over to On-Chi. They quickly go into Logos, take their archive. Submersive Principle cuts that Ember in half, so they're down to 6. Data Forge, Hydro Cataloger, Tau Mad Steelheart comes down, and Quick Draw takes game 2. We are on the game 3, as we were hoping for. Huge too much to protect. And nice to see you, Tiev. And Quick Draw will make a new game for Adaptive. All right. Game 3. That's what we wanted here. This is Keyforge.
This is Keyforge.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. Always forget. Alrighty. Game 3. So, we've seen Blood Oath on Cheese deck win both games, and both of them kind of easily. And with all the speed that is in Blood Oath, what do we expect for the chains here? Anybody have any idea of what chains we're going to see here for this bid? TF's quite hard to define these chains. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is definitely where it gets interesting. Okay, both players have selected Arabelle, Blood Oath, Plutopoly. Quick Draw starts with one chain for Blood Oath. On-Chi quickly bids 5. Yeah, I think to me, this is a kind of a 9-10. I don't know. I feel like we didn't get to see the best of Guadalupe as well. But the shadows and On-Chi can really punish. So, okay, Quick Draw bids 7 and On-Chi passes. So, Quick Draw gets Blood Oath for 7 chains. How well can that archiving handle those chains, I wonder? How much is too much? Yeah, I agree. I mean, if they don't get some logo speed early, they may be in trouble. Game on. They do also have the double mimicry, which we didn't see. The punctuated, which could help them get to some of that logo speed. So they are only starting with four cards in their hand, though. On-Chi goes first and plays out the Ulfbert device. Now that's actually interesting. And I didn't see if they mulliganed or not. Quick Draw comes back with a Fang House, just one card. And Inch turn. So that is really interesting, although they are drawing up to 5 now. I wonder if that means they have really important Shadows cards that they don't want to get rid of? Do they have some sort of combo? Maybe they have a Mimicry and they're waiting for an action, which they can't do now because of Ulfbert. Now they go in the shadows. Novu Archaeologist is on the board for Anchi and the Tide Warp. Shadows comes down for quick draw. Redlock, Cell on the Fence, and Lamindra. And a life for a life for Cell on the Fence to take out the Nova Archaeologist. And Tide Warp starts warping. Game on. Oh yeah, it's getting exciting now. Quick Draw is already down the 4 chains. The infighting comes, but it comes very early actually. I do like the placement here by Quick Draw. The Lamindra, obviously they were playing around the infighting, but it also now gives them the option to make, if for example they get a Titan Librarian, make it elusive next to it. Anchi though has a really nice churn with Chelonia, a Mookling, and a Youngest Bear. So some board pressure there, some more Ember gain pressure with the Chelonia. Quick Draw comes out with a ZYX Researcher and a Poke, archiving the top card of their deck, not archiving the Feng House, which makes sense. I wonder if the Life of for Life was still on the deck, if on the top, if he would have archived that. The early Oofbler is interesting to navigate, and as the player with less chains and the ability to potentially grow a board earlier, I'm wondering if that was a right play. We do know that Blood Oath can obviously create a very commanding board as we saw in game 1. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Anchi goes into Logos. The Hydro Cataloger comes out. Bilgewarden to raise a tide and archive. Chelonia to gain some member. And they get to check at 6 and pass it back over to Quick Draw. Now we didn't really see it happen last game, but what might also be interesting to see if happens is if they get the Tide Warp Mecha Boy action, that can play a little bit around who much to protect. Because you get to gain that extra ember on your turn. We see Quick Draw come back here with Skeleton Key, Miasma to stop the key, and they discard Swindle, wanting to get further into their deck here, and knowing that they'd have to hold on to it for at least 2 turns with the Ulfbert device out. I think they're wondering, should they raise a tide or should they fight some stuff? They do decide to fight off the Chelonia with Lamindra and Redlock. Ooh, and they play their second Miasma as well. Now that one's interesting. I think they really just want to make sure they get deeper into their deck. But without having both Miasma, they may not be able to set up as big of punishing plays. Okay, Anchi goes quickly into Untamed. Youngest Bear reaps and also then reaps with the Bilgewarden, raises a tide, all tied up to gain even more Ember, up to 10 Ember. Deepwater Gruin comes out. They know Quick Draw can't go back into shadows. I guess that's another great reason to have the Ulfbert device out. You can't go in the shadows 2 turns in a row. Deepwater Gruin comes out for even more Ember and Flume, up to 13 Ember. Quick Draw comes back into Logos, Remote Access, Titan Librarian, Project ZYX a turn too late, potentially. Not that they have anything in their archives right now. And Project ZYX fights off. I could see the Mookling, I could see the Bilge Warden. They do fight off the Mookling so that they get to check. And they are down now to 1 chain. But Anchi gets a key for 6 Ember. They'll be up to 8 Ember after that key. And after they get... Oh, sorry. They don't have Mechabui out yet, so I was mistaken there. They are already back up to 7 Ember as well. Project was probably in the archives, maybe. Hard to say. But they are starting to get some Titan Librarian value. Okay. Biome Discovery comes out. They raise the tide, archive a card. Technobabble comes out to stun Project ZYX and the Titan Librarian. Lieutenant Volmart stops the key. Dr. Driscoll and Shield You Later also come out. And Lieutenant Volmart makes it so that Quickdraw doesn't forge. Anchi's back up to 9 Ember for their second key already. Quickdraw quickly goes into Shadows. Does he have the too much to protect? Does he have an answer? He's still got 16 cards in his draw. He does not have the too much to protect because Ronnie Riscox comes out. And Nerve Blast, so he is going to be able to stop the key. Nerve Blast takes out the Bilge Warden. Redlock takes out Youngest Bear. And Lamendra Reaps, and Skeleton Key will stop the key by capturing on the Project ZYX, and Quickdraw gets up to 10 Ember. That was a much needed churn from Quickdraw. They are still fighting a little bit from behind here, but back to Anchi, going into Logos. We haven't seen much Logos for quite a while here, so they might have a pretty big turn then. They probably have Submersive Principle here. They'll need to raise a tide somehow first. Guadalupe is very spicy. Yes, he might hold the too much to protect for the third key, you're right. So Theory or Conjecture comes out first, archiving the top 2 cards of their deck. Guadalupe, the periodically spiky, but also very spicy. And I gotta love the other name too, Blood Oath. Blood Oath has definitely been making people see blood. Data Forge comes down. Eddie to archive a card, which puts the key cost up to 9. Making Quickdraw play 9 for their key, and then Talmage Steelheart comes out with an extra +4 counters to make it a 7 power Talmage. And back to check at 6 Ember. On the board now, we have a Choo Choo Choo, 2 Logos, 2 Star Alliance, 2 Untamed for Anchi. Quickdraw's got 2 Stun Logos creatures, and then 3 Shadows creatures, but they just went Shadows. So they haven't gone Untamed for quite a while. I'm guessing that we're probably going to see an Untamed call here. But who knows? Depends what they draw. AoA, AoA, AoA and DT. Very, very good set selection here for our final. Very cool seeing quickdraw navigate these claustrophobic chains and Ulfbert device and continue to stay in it. Yes, he is now down to no more chains. So we'll have to see if he can claw his way back in. He's still got 12 cards in the draw. We've seen one Titan Librarian. We've seen one ZYX Researcher. We haven't seen the Director yet. Here comes the Director. Here comes the Professor Sutterkin. That is huge. It probably will not survive, but it puts some nice Logos board pressure here. Obviously, with the Ulfbert device, it's not that much board pressure. Meanwhile, Anchi gets to archive another card using Tide Warp and forges the blue key, paying 6 Ember. Pushing for the Mimicry to copy Data Forge. Ooh, that is spicy. Seeding the second key here is actually quite rough, but if they can get to too much to protect, they do have the skeleton key, so they kind of have a get out of jail free for that last key. And if they can get a free key with Data Forge, well, that's pretty appropriate on the Data Forge stream. So this definitely, there's still a lot of action here yet to go. Big threats with Sutterkin and Project. We already saw the infighting. Final analysis, they just went logos, so they wouldn't be able to play that anyway. They're going into Star Alliance. Let's see, we've seen one Technobabble, but maybe we can see the other. They also can do some fighting here, of course. I would imagine that getting rid of the Professor at least is a very high priority, even though they do have a couple turns to do that. Ooh, they play Stunner and Teresa on Deepwater Gruin. So it can both fight or reap and do some stunning. Static collection array comes down. That was actually pretty interesting with the too much to protect, because now it no longer is necessarily too much to protect, and Skeleton T will get you out of anything. The Xeno training comes down to capture one on the Talmage. Deepwater Gruin fights off the Professor Sutterkin and stuns the Project ZYX, taking care of both of the big threats. Walmart reaps, and Dr. Driscoll heals the Deepwater Gruin for 2 damage. They get back up to check at 6. Ooh, that is huge. What a play, what a play. The fact that they were able to get the check there is really big, because Quickdraw might have a full hand of Untamed. We haven't seen much Untamed there, and I don't think there's anything that they can mimicry to. There is a Xeno training now, so they can mimicry the Xeno training. They're getting some Director of ZYX value now, so now they're starting to get their archiving forces in play. Yes, that could be huge. Not that we know that they have Mimicry, but with Chu in the deck, it's a possibility. We also haven't seen the Grasping Vines. That could actually be quite interesting to see when that comes into play. Punctuated Equilibrium here could be important. It could be scary if they just drew into too much to protect or something. There's a lot going on here. Grasping Vines now is really needed. Yeah, I think you're right there. So with Anchi being the having the tide high already here, they will go tide low with the tide warp. So their key cost will go up to 7. So that's interesting. But this is also very interesting. Quick Draw goes into shadows here. Lemindra Reap, Skeleton Key captures on the Titan Librarian. Redlock fights off the Eddy. And Ronnie Riskok Reaps. And they gain 1 Ember with Redlock. So they didn't. That is a really interesting play with Ulfbert Device still on the board. Because that means they can't go into shadows next turn. They do get some more archiving. And what's even more interesting there is they didn't play any keys. So, of course, we do know they most likely have the mimicry here. But all their Ember control is in shadows. So they'd have to, I think, rely on their mimicries for Ember control. Yeah, every single Ember control is in shadows. Yeah, he could have checked to see, based off the cards that on Chia's back, can they burst that much? It's possible. They go into Untamed. Thin the Herd here is huge. Thin the Herd returns the least powerful to their owner's deck. Ronnie Riskclocks, Redlock, Lemindra, and Director of ZYX. So all 4 from Quickdraw's board. It does now have the possibility of drawing back into some good stuff. It does keep the Director from archiving, which is probably worth it. Deepwater Gruin can do some work here. Flumph can do some work. I guess the question though is, do they want to... I'm guessing they want to get rid of the Titan Librarian, but we'll see. Coming onto the board is also Myliobe. Let's see, so they raise a tide to archive 1. And Deepwater Gruin comes out. 2 Ember there. Ooh, I think there's a game. I don't think, depending what these other 2 creatures do, Mimicking, Xeno Training twice won't do it. I think even with 2 creatures on the board. They Reap with Deepwater Gruin, they stun the Titan Librarian. They play the Fittest, and then Flumph fights off the Titan Librarian. They're up to 11 Ember. Key cost of 5. Now that would potentially go up to 7. But I'm not sure if they can get them off here. What am I missing? Can we double Data Forge? Oh, double Mimicry. Data Forge. Yeah, maybe that's the play. Maybe that's what he was setting up. 13 Ember. 13 cards in hand. Oh man, it's tight. They play the play the Mimicry. They get an Ember there. Oh, I think they're 1 Ember off. Yeah. Oh man. Youch. Oh man, one off if they had the director. They do go into Untamed. They do take their archives. They're up to 13. Grasping Vines. Oh, the take back the skeleton key. Can they do it now? I think that'll do it. Regrowth. Oh, regrowth will help too. Regrowth brings back Fang House. So now they'll cost 2 Ember each. I think they got enough. Mimicry for Data Forge. Paying 4 Ember. Oh no, I did my math wrong. Oh no, I think they're still short. I think they're still 1 Ember off. Oh no. Oh no. Wow, what a finish. What else? What other tricks does he have? My math was off. There's the second mimicry. Oh yeah, my math was off. I was thinking key abduction math. I was thinking key abduction math. No way. No way. The second Data Forge, 1 Ember off from winning the game. Oh man. So close. Either 1 card or 1 Ember short. Quick Draw plays everything else out, and Anchi is your KAGI 9.0 champion. Congratulations. What a match. What a finish. That was exciting. Oh man, so close. So close. Congratulations, Anchi. Quick Draw says he had 1 misplay at the last turn, but was still 1 off. Whoa, that was insane. Wow. What a great game. What's up, Mooseman dude? Nice to see you. Thank you, Atlantis1982, for the follow at some point. I missed it. I gotta fix my alerts. Whew, what a game. Oh man, that was so exciting. Trying to set up the double Data Forge to finish the game 1 Ember short. Whew. Should have played the artifact first. Oh, that would have done it. That would have done it. But it wouldn't have been enough still? But that would have given you 1 extra Ember. Was he still 1 short? Maybe he was still 1 short. Whew. So close, so close. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was. I think he's right. I think he's right. Maybe it was 2 Ember short. I guess, yeah, whatever. As Quickdraw said, if he wouldn't have killed the director that last turn, he would have had it. Or reshuffled it back in, rather. But, oh man, what a game. So exciting. If you all missed it, make sure to sign up for KAGI 10.0 to play exciting games like this. Oh my goodness. Here is the form. What a very interesting matchup, for sure. As Anchi says, these 2 decks interact so well together. Yeah, lots of interesting interactions there. So I'm going to see if anybody's available for an interview here. so we can hear from the players what was going through their heads during this match. Woo. Okay, we are going to have an interview. That is very exciting. No flash photography, guys. Very cool game. Very cool game. I'm just going to see when they are ready for the interview. Okay, if it sounds like both of them will be able to be interviewed, so let me know what your questions are. Would love to have some questions from the chat for our amazing players. It's really exciting. Seven chains seem to be about, at least for that match, the perfect amount for a very exciting match. Lucky number 7. So yes, I have to definitely ask about the interaction between AOA and DT because that was really cool. Hello, Onchi.
Hi. You wait for me a little bit for 5 minutes to fix my audio is having problem.
Okay, yeah, no worries. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so Onchi's gonna fix his audio here, so there'll be a few minutes there. All right, thanks JT for watching. Any other questions that anybody has, I will start to write some down just so that I remember. Interaction between DT and AOA was pretty interesting. Always asking about the chains is great. Asking more about Blood Oath, I think, would be interesting. At what point was the plan to attempt a double mimicry? Yeah, we'll have to ask Quickdraw that for sure. Hello? If
So we can start the video.
I can't hear you, you're really quiet.
Quiet.
Oh, that's better. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm right.
Okay, great. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I'll increase your volume here. Okay, great. So first off, congratulations on winning KAGI 9.0. That's amazing.
Yes. So this journey is incredible for me. Um, First, I thought this league just to like have fun, also learn because my friends said that that league is skill testing, So it's a things for me to learn, and somehow I made it to the final. I'm just wow.
I guess you're a quick learner because you've beat a lot of some of the best players in adaptive to get here and win the final. So amazing job, amazing job. So why don't you tell me a little bit about Blood Elf? I hear that it was your first deck. Um, yeah, tell me a little bit about what you like so much about it.
Uh, so I started playing first semester uh 2022 November, and but at that time uh there was not much stream deck to find open, and it wasn't until the first quarter of 2023. So do you know Riku?
What was that?
Riku,
Oh yeah, Riku. Yeah,
Emperor Riku.
yeah.
Yeah. So I started playing cricket at his local game store, and I remember it was a Sue event, iOS Sue event, and that was my first time opening Sue deck, and I opened Arabelle at the time, and well, but at the time I didn't know how to play well, and really decided to sell it to another player. But my friend said you need to learn and adapt the play style of NFL. And, well, maybe it took me about 100 months to learn and master this deck. And reason why I love this deck because I mean it's unique, unique. Just one day I realized that the logos, the logos part can somehow hide the whole shadow part inside inside green inside about uh my restaurant is 20 cups in the medium type, so that's why I love this jacket.
Great, thanks for that. And I'm still having a little bit of a problem understanding. It just the audio quality is like a little bit. Sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to understand. Um, do you,
Uh,
is do you know if you have any ability to have the audio a little bit clearer?
it's too small or it's like
It's not yeah, it's still a little bit hard to hear. Yeah. If there's nothing you can do to make it better, we can continue.
is it better now?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Oh, I found the problem.
Okay, great. Good. So we actually have a question from the chat. What aspect of Arabelle do you think makes that deck good for adaptive?
Well, I once put my deck. Uh, I posted on the deck review channel in the NKFL Discord, and the NKFL players they was thrilled by the double milk grind, and they said that this could be perfect for an adaptive match.
Yeah.
As you can see in the last turn, so quick draw he used the double milk grind to copy my the data post, and he nearly won the game. So that's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Mimicry is definitely a very interesting card, and especially like how good it is depends on the deck you're playing against, and that makes all the
Yeah.
interactions that you can have, especially across set, even more interesting. So yeah, it's definitely very, very interesting and a very cool part of your deck. We have another question from the chat. Do you feel more comfortable playing with your deck or against your deck because you know its weaknesses?
Well, this will depend on the result of the first game. If I win the first game, I will be very comfortable playing against my deck because I have a chance to finish the game faster, quicker. But if I lose the first game and it is a very, very close game, that means in the second match against my deck, I will be extremely pressured. But lucky for me that in through the whole league, the whole KG 9.0, I didn't face that problem.
Okay. And it seemed like you were pretty comfortable playing against your deck because you did win the last game. um, so for the chains, obviously it was a really kind of interesting matchup between your AOA deck and Quickdraw's DT deck. We saw that you bid 5 chains and then Quickdraw went up to 7, and then you let him have it for that. What was your ideal number that you thought it was worth? Like how much would have you gone up to? Was 5 your max, or would you gone a little bit higher?
Well, actually, I want to go for 6, and we first draw to bit of 7. Or he will stop that chain, that amount of chains. I think it's suitable for a bell, but I don't know. I don't know uh, why quick draw make a jump from instead of bidding of 6, he bid 7.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
I'll definitely have to ask Quickdraw too. Maybe he was comfortable going even higher, or maybe he thought it was worth 7 and so he didn't want to go 6, so that in case you bid 7, that you could get it for what he thought it was worth. But well, I'll definitely have to
Yeah,
ask Quickdraw that too.
because the way how Arabelle works is depend on the logos part because logos must appear in the early game to archive your whole side part into the archive, and you play around the intent to disrupt your opponent. Yeah, but if you are lucky and the the logos they are all in the bottom of your deck, that would be a nightmare for you. So
Yeah.
I I think that 6 is the good amount.
Okay, good. What did you think about the interactions between your AOA deck and Quick Draw's Dark Tiding deck?
Uh, Basically, Quick Cross deck has lots of answer to many problems. It's like um, a well-built deck. So my AOI deck always has advantage when faced with those decks because I can use my double make right to copy his useful action cards. So yeah, that's as you can see, the maybe the double mimic Roy is MVP of this match.
Yeah, I was kind of sad that your Logos was so good in the first game that you just archived everything. We didn't even get to see mimicry in play. But maybe you used it once to stun, but yeah. You can see how powerful it is there at the end
Yeah.
of that last game.
So in the first game, I actually wanted to use another house, but somehow Logos they just dominate the ball, and I have no reason to use another house.
Right, especially since you were also able to play cards off house with Project ZYX, which is also a really
Yeah, yeah,
that is also a
that's
really cool aspect of your
problem.
deck.
That's a problem with me in the second and the last game because I the artifact that force you cannot choose the same house as your last turn. That can be a key to kill airbell, but project is the cat that can answer this question well.
Yeah. Yep. So they can't set up the miasma and then the too much to protect if they don't have project or yeah. So that was a big key. Good. So is there anything else that you want to tell the audience or anything else that you want to share?
Well, sometimes you will feel like so lucky, and they always change for you to win the game. So take it.
Good. I like it. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Anchi, and
Yeah,
again, congratulations, champion of KAGI 9.0, an amazing run, beating a lot of experts and kind of long-term KAGI champions along the way. So well done.
yes. Thank you, thank you. Okay.
All right. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too. Bye bye.
Okay, we will now try and get quick draw in here. So cool. So cool. Hey, quick draw, how are you?
What's up, Zoc? I've been better.
Yeah, that was a very interesting match. You made it very exciting. It was kind of swingy and all the. But first, congratulations for getting to the final. You have made top cut 8 out of 9 Kagi seasons. You've made 3 finals, tying Ashitaka for the most finals. I mean, you are, as Murph said in chat, you are the Kagi goat.
I don't know. Well, I appreciate that. I don't have as many championships as my teammate Not Tonight does, and that's gonna haunt me for one more season.
That is true. That is true. So yeah, what were your thoughts on this matchup?
So I didn't do a ton of prep. I know he had played this deck earlier, so I was aware of the deck. It's a really intricate, really cool deck. Low C with double mimicry, like um, the big logos board that he got out the first game with tons of archiving. Obviously, like the miasma TMTP play and the setup for that. So really cool deck, tons of decisions to be made with it. I think it's a great adaptive deck. Um, I'll say it. I think I had the short end of the stick on the draws in a few games. Um, game two, I legit thought I was gonna lose that game. Like
Yeah.
I was so far behind, and all of the cards that I needed were buried, but they came to me at the right time, thankfully, so we could have that exciting game three.
Yeah, we were all rooting for game three, and it was very exciting game three. You almost pulled off the double Data Forge on the Data Forge stream with mimicry. It was so close. Tell me
Uh,
about that. We did have a question in the chat. At what point was the plan to attempt the double mimicking the Data Forge? How long were you trying to set that up for?
it was actually just the turn prior to that. I only had one mimicry archived at that point, and I knew that I needed to archive the second one to get that possibility. And so I called Shadows, and I think that was when the start of that turn of the Shadows turn, I archived the second mimicry, and so I was like, okay, this is in play now. This is possible. I had to fight off the Eddy because he was going to archive S'more, and I had no way to remove it in Untamed. And I had to hope that he did not have a Witch of the Dawn to get back the Mookling, and he didn't. So the 3-power skirmish Shadows guy gave me an extra amber for not playing any creatures. I actually had no Shadows cards in hand at that time. Um, I guess in hindsight, no, I ended up drawing a card. So I drew a card. Let me think here. So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like replaying this in my head right now. I ended up reaping twice, and I fought off the Eddy. He did not come out with any taxing creatures, which was what I wanted. I think I may have had special delivery in archives, which makes me regret this a little bit more. If I had pulled my archives, I could have played the special delivery for the one extra amber, but I would not have drawn a card. So I don't know if it would have made a difference, but then the grasping vines could have pulled that back to hand, but I don't think that would have made a difference. I think that was a net. I'm like working through this math in my head. I think that was a net even sum there,
I think
but
you're
it
right.
was that turn before when I tried to set it up because I knew I couldn't call Untamed even though I had the double mimicry in there because that was my only out. Like I was too far behind in the game that my only chance was going Shadows that turn to set up the double mimicry. And I think everyone probably noticed the misplay on the mimicry turn. Thank the Archons that didn't cost me because I'd be crying right now.
Right.
Um, but I should have played the Niffle Grounds first for the Amber before the Grasping Vines. It would have been one extra Amber. I would have still been one short.
Right.
So the actual difference in the game was the Thin the Herd on the Researcher. Because the Researcher, if he had survived that last turn, would have archived at the start of turn, which is actually a net 2 Amber with the Data Forge. And it would have
The
been just enough.
director. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry, the Director. The one that archives at the start.
Yeah. It's very close game. I love that you went for it. So close to getting it. It was super exciting. We saw that after he bid 5 chains, you went straight up to 7. What was your max that you were going for? Obviously, did you think it was 7 and you wanted to beat him to the first just in case you went 6 and he went 7, or did you think it was worth more than that?
7 was definitely the max. I did not want him as the first player going 7 because I just felt like, that deck can just roll really fast with the archiving. I didn't want to give it a chance, you know, going first to shed a chain, have 6, and then get out like a couple of those scientists early on, and the chains are meaningless at that point. So I didn't want that to happen. That's why I went straight to 7. I actually thought he was going to go to 8, and I was going to pass for sure, but I was a little surprised when he didn't. Um, I was okay with it until the Ulfbert device came down, and that was turn 1 Ulfbert device. I felt like I was pretty much cooked at that point. Yeah, because I ended up getting a lot of hands where I like redrew just the house I just drawn, and so when you're
Mm.
chained like that, that was like way too much tempo loss to make up for it.
Yeah, and especially with that deck, the Ulfbert device does a lot since it can use a Project ZYX off house. Yeah, and being able to set up the too much to protect play by delaying with a miasma to then make him punish. It's pretty big against that.
Yeah, that was definitely what I was going for in game 2. He had done it pretty well in game 1. Game 1 was just like I drew completely dead. I drew no device, no infighting, no final analysis, no thin the herd, and there was nothing I could have done that first game. And I thought the matchup was definitely closer than that first game showed, and that's why you know, 7. I guess in hindsight, 7 might be a little high. But I think if the draws had gone a little bit differently for either side in the last game, I think it's certainly winnable at 7.
Yeah, I definitely think it's winnable. I mean, you're right. The first game they totally high rolled, you low rolled. I mean, they started with double the researcher or the Titan librarian. So fairly soon they were archiving lots of cards, and I think they stayed on the board pretty much the whole game.
Yeah, no, I never drew a single piece of C.
Along with the director. So that was just pretty difficult there. We have another question from the chat from Mooseman's dude. Do you feel more comfortable playing with your deck or against it since you know its weaknesses?
Both. There's pros to playing with it, and there's pros to playing against it. Um, I enjoy both aspects of it. It's a really intricate deck, and yeah, I don't think I have a preference. Like that's why I like bringing it to adaptive, because it's not like neither game or none of the games really, if it goes to game 3, am I feeling like, you know, I'm out of it just because, or it's not what I want, right? Like, so I have no preference going into game 3 if I'm playing with or against it.
Great, that makes sense. And we saw that you brought Guadalupe the periodically spiky here, and we of course saw you win KAGI 3.0 with that. We saw that in KAGI 7.0 you brought your French Evil Twin deck. I didn't actually get to see what other decks you brought this season in KAGI, but what was the thought process on bringing Guadalupe?
I only brought one other deck this season. It was Maybo the Blissful, which Fudginator is familiar with. It's another DT deck, of course. It has a Honors Kesis and a Data Forge in it. I only played that one against JT Russell in the pod play, and it was only because JT Russell knows Guadalupe as well as anyone, and I just wanted to throw a curveball then. I did not really consider bringing anything but Guadalupe to the top cut, just because I have so many reps with it. Um, I'm just really comfortable with and against it. I think it's a great choice here, and I also feel that even if people know that I'm gonna bring this, I'm still like there's still enough lines with it where I'm like I don't think people are gonna pick up on them right away when they play them, and so I'm not worried about giving anything away by like people thinking, oh, he's probably gonna bring this.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, for a deck that complex with so many decision points, there's so many things that'll make you uncomfortable with your playing it if you haven't played it more than a couple times, right? I'm sure you still found out more about it like after playing it for 50 times, just based off of all the different decision points. So, yeah.
Yeah. I actually envisioned this matchup going in. I thought like if I'm playing Guadalupe, maybe I'll like establish an untamed board and then not discard or not play my creature control, just to
Mm,
not open it up to mimicry. And then little
yeah.
did I know I was never going to draw it anyway. So
Yeah, the board situation was actually pretty interesting. Obviously they had the big logos board in the first game, and you didn't draw any C. The C was kind of all over the place in the second game, and it was kind of like back and forth. But yeah, it's kind of hard to predict how it's going to go, and a lot of it is based off the draw.
yeah, like that was the first time with Guadalupe that I never got any of the C. Like because it has 3 pieces that would have been adequate, and I'm very accustomed to chaining myself with them whenever I get them for the right time. Not a problem. I have had very few situations where I get halfway through the deck and haven't seen any of it yet. Um,
Right.
and I didn't. I think I had one Techno Babble in the first game, and so obviously that's only good for a turn.
Yeah.
So like, and even if we throw in the Alfred device as one of those pieces of C, like that's 4 cards that if any one of them would have come earlier, I'd have been pretty comfortable with game 1.
Right. Well, I don't have any more questions for you. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
Well, I love you, Zach. I'm so glad you streamed this one. I'm gonna be frank. I'm pretty tired of interviewing as the second place finisher. So I'm gonna see what I can do in KAGI 10.0 to not be in this last interview slot.
Well, I love you too, Quick Draw, and I really thank you for your time because I know it's really late there. It's past your bedtime, I'm sure. But I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you putting on a heck of a show, and it is super impressive every season. You're top cutting, you're getting to the final or near it. So I know it sucks losing, but you've done an amazing job. So well done.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And now that I've unleashed well, I didn't unleash all the secrets, but I'm playing you tomorrow night
Yes.
with the same deck in our adaptive match. So um, you got the sneak peek, and not that I mean this isn't anything new to you, but you've seen the deck before. But I will see you tomorrow night.
It was nice to have a good refresher. Secretly, that now you know, audience. This is why I was here. This is why I did this. Is I just really wanted a refresher on Guadalupe so that I have a mere shot going into my match tomorrow with you.
It's gonna be so much fun. Your deck is super cool. I'm really looking forward to it. And you're gonna be streaming tomorrow night, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, very cool.
All right.
Well,
Well,
thank you.
yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
the
the
coverage.
time. Congrats for another great finish. And yeah. Good night.
Thanks, man. Good night.
Take care. Okay. We are blessed to have such very generous people in the Keyforge community giving their time to come on and really upstanding citizens. If you want to hear more from QuickDraw, as you may have missed, I said at the beginning of the show, you can see him every Wednesday night on twitch.tv/sloppylabwork. He is the co-host of Bottom of the Beaker with JT Russell. They put on a great show, so check that out as well. Okay, with that, that's a stream. Thanks everybody for being here. We had quite the show. Congratulations again to Anchi, the champion of KAGI 9.0. What a run. It was a super exciting finish. Almost saw a double mimicry data forge for the win. Thanks again for everybody for watching, and you all have yourselves a wonderful day or evening wherever you're at. And as always, forge responsibly. Thanks everybody. Have a good one.